Simon Kidston joins me now in the Sydney studio to discuss Genex Power. Very good to see you. Thanks for coming in today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
So Simon, please, can you introduce Genex Power, the company? Tell us about yourselves.
So Genex Power is all about renewable energy generation, but it's also very focused on energy storage, which is a major focus for the renewable energy markets going forward.
Generation and storage of renewable energy, a nice bit of a different story for us here. Tell us about your Kidston project in Queensland. It is multifaceted. You've just completed sort of stage one. Tell us all about this.
Okay, so we're developing a site in North Queensland, and that site's been developed into a renewable energy hub over 3 stages. The first stage is a 50 megawatt solar farm that was built last year, and we're very pleased to say it was built on time and under budget. The focus now is to build our second stage. It's a much larger project. It's an integrated pump storage hydro project, which is our giant water battery, and we're going to integrate that with an expanded solar farm. And down the track, the stage 3 is a wind farm, which will be developed over the next couple of years.
Okay, Simon, we need to know more. Tell us technologically, why is it so interesting for investors that you will have the so-called holy grail, the trifecta, the triple threat, wind, solar, water, and tell us more about this water battery concept of yours.
Renewable energy is great, it's clean, but the problem with it is that the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. So what the market now needs is a reliable, low-cost way to store power. So the cheapest, most reliable, the lowest cost way to store energy is through pump storage hydro. So our project, we think of it as a giant water battery. It can store energy when it's in surplus and dispatch that and generate into the grid when prices are high and demand is the highest. So in that way, it's a very strategic asset which is absolutely fit for purpose.
And for the layman in the audience, Simon, could you please break it down? How does this hydro battery power generation setup work?
It's a giant water battery. So what we have is 2 enormous holes in the ground, and we'll be utilising the energy from the solar farm next door to provide the energy to pump the water from a lower reservoir to an upper reservoir. That water is then stored and can be released through tunnels and turbines to generate energy on command. It's a very, very simple technology. There's more than 1,000 of these projects operating in the world. The biggest one in Australia is part of Snowy. It's called Snowy 2.0, and we're just building a really exciting version of that in Queensland.
And this sounds like it's very clean, environmentally friendly, and of course something that governments should be interested in. I understand that you've just had some Commonwealth money granted to develop Kidston. Tell us more about the funding and the partnerships driving it forward.
So we've been working very closely with the Queensland Government and the Commonwealth Government. Last week we announced the Commonwealth Government's agency called the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility announced a $516 million concessional loan to really provide the bulk of the funding we need to develop our stage 2 assets. So $500 million, it's a lot of money, it is concessional, and that will really underpin the financing strategy for stage 2. And our intention is to get construction happening next year.
And tell us, with construction, when are you looking at really producing those critical levels of energy for Queensland? And tell us, what proportion of energy consumption will this cover? And can you give us some comparisons to other renewable projects? We know, of course, there's been a lot in Europe for a long time. Sort of tell us how your project sits in Queensland and in the world relative to other similar operations.
In many ways, Europe is well ahead of what's happening in Australia. In Europe, they've been investing in renewable technology now for decades, and the result of that is actually a decline in energy prices. In Australia, we're now getting on board. There's been a big investment in wind and solar in the last 18 months. And what the government now seeks to do is complement that growth with low-cost energy storage. Our Kidston Pump Storage Hydro project is shovel-ready. It's the most advanced project of its type in the country, and in many ways ideally placed to perform that role in the market.
And obviously Australia, we get a lot of sunshine. We are in closer proximity to China than Europe. Of course, China producing a lot of those elements and solar panels completed. Tell us, are there any other advantages of being a renewable energy player in Australia, in this region?
Well, we chose a site which is in North Queensland, and of course North Queensland, the Sunshine State, has a phenomenal solar resource. So we have a very high efficiency factor from our solar farm. But the site itself was once a very large gold mine, and what we're doing is repurposing all of the infrastructure that was left behind by the gold mine, transmission lines, accommodation camps, airstrips, 2 enormous holes in the ground, and we're going to utilise that infrastructure to give us a massive capital cost advantage in developing this site. We estimate that advantage is in excess of $500 million, which obviously very good for our economics, but it's also enabled us to develop these projects more quickly than otherwise would be the case.
Fantastic. So Simon, you're well into stage 2 of your development with that 270 megawatt solar farm. You have all your rest of your development plans mapped out and funding for them. Remind us, what are the next key news flows that investors should stay tuned for, and what are those end goals? What are we striving towards? How much of Queensland's energy will you be storing and providing?
So in the next 6 months, in the 6 months to the end of this calendar year, we've got some major milestones which we expect to finalise. One of the key ones is a long-term offtake arrangement with a major energy utility in the Queensland market that will underpin our revenues for the next 10 years. I think when the market sees that announcement, they will see that the other elements required to finance our project are relatively procedural and well and truly in train. So there's a number of big milestones that we'll put in place over the next 6 months when we finance the project and get it going.
Oh, the commercialisation light is very visible at the end of the tunnel there, Simon. All the best with all your progress so far. Very interesting story. We do wish you all the best for the benefit of your shareholders and the planet.
Thank you very much.